Hastily, she ran to the beggar, grabbed his plate of money, and sprinted off. That single moment earned her 100 shots from the celebrity photographers. Once upon a time in the city, there was a woman called Zina. Aside beauty, she had unlimited access to wealth because she was the only daughter of a popular billionaire, and that made her popular. She had fans who wished they could live like her for at least one day. She owned a private jet, a luxurious yacht, a collection of the latest cars, a huge mansion, and vacation homes in Dubai, London, Paris, and New York. She lacked absolutely nothing. Anything she wanted, her father will provide. She never worked a day, but was only taught how to manage her father's companies because she was the heiress to his wealth. However, despite being flooded with so much riches, Zina was a chronic thief. Whenever she went shopping, she would steal something very little. Her personal assistant, PA, who had been told to pay for anything she steals, would pretend like she didn't see her steal and then pay for it later. Because of this, the public never knew about Zina's weakness, not until a particular day. On that fateful day, Zina stepped out of her latest Benz car, walking towards one of her companies with her security escorts and PA surrounding her, when a group of celebrity photographers began capturing her every move. Zina was used to this, so she walked elegantly as the shots were taken. As she moved, she sighted a man dressed in tattered, torn, and dirty clothes, sitting on the ground with a plate containing the money passerbys had dropped for him. Zina immediately started feeling the urge to steal the beggar's money, but she tried to hold herself because there were cameras around. Getting to the entrance of her company, she was torn between ignoring the beggar's money and taking it. She didn't know why with each step she took, the urge to take it increased until the desire reached its peak. Hastily, she ran to the beggar, grabbed his plate of money, and sprinted off. That single moment earned her 100 shots from the celebrity photographers, and those shots didn't hesitate to go viral. It went so viral that the business moguls, who were business partners with Zina's father, were having mixed feelings of working with him. Zina's father, Mr. Okonkwo, pleaded with them and lied that Zina was ill. The business moguls decided that they wanted them to hold a press conference where Zina would explain in details why she stole a beggar's money. They explained that if they perceived a compelling justification, they would continue to work with Okonkwo. Mr. Okonkwo was pacing around the sitting room worriedly when Zina stepped in. She noticed her father's body language and knew she was the reason behind them. Cautiously, she greeted, "Daddy, good afternoon." "Good afternoon, your head there. See what you have caused. How can a grown woman who is technically a billionaire be stealing from a beggar? Just how? Make it make sense. What have I not given you? What is it? Ever since your mother left us, I made sure you lacked nothing. Nothing. But here you are, tainting my image," Mr. Okonkwo stated angrily. Zina felt remorseful for her actions. She didn't know why she normally had a strange urge to steal things, so she replied, "I am sorry. I promise I won't do it again, Daddy." Mr. Okonkwo laughed at her statement. He knew she would never change because since she began stealing, whenever she stole, she would promise to never repeat it again, only for her to continue the next day. He had already given up on ever seeing Zina change. "Look, I have already agreed on holding the press conference. Top executives, my business partners, journalists, and photographers will all be there. So I have crafted what you will be saying. Take it from your PR and memorize it. That is the only thing you will say. Don't add any other thing. Do you understand?" "Yes, Daddy," she answered. "Good. Now go to your room. I need to think," he said as he continued his pacing. The day of the press conference came, and the hall was filled with business executives, journalists, reporters, photographers, videographers, broadcast team, some government officials, and partners. The press began, and when it was time for Zina to give her speech, she delivered just like her father had instructed her to. However, it spiked up more questions from the journalists. One of the journalists, Mrs. Agatha, stood and spoke into her microphone. "My name is Mrs. Agatha, and here is my question. What is your take on murder?" Everyone present was confused as to why she asked a question that was totally off the main topic. Zina was taken aback by it, but conducted herself and answered, "I believe it is a horrendous crime that should never be forgiven." "Does it mean that I should never forgive you for killing my sister, Nedima, back in secondary school?" she said, causing a sudden rise of murmurs amongst the audience. Mr. Okonkwo quickly grabbed a microphone from his table and spoke. "Has anyone told you that false accusation is a serious crime? I have full evidence as we speak, sir, that my sister, Nedima Okeke, was murdered by Zina." Mr. Okonkwo then stood from his seat in the VIP and turned his back, facing her again. "Review the evidence," Mrs. Agatha then replied. "Zina's condition is the evidence. My only regret is that I didn't listen to my sister, Nedima, back in secondary school," she said, forcing back tears as she dropped the microphone while getting back to her seat. She knew that if she continued talking, she would break down in tears. Mr. Okonkwo didn't want any further issues that would cause his business partners to leave him. So he said, "Please, don't buy into what that journalist just said. There is no way my daughter can commit such a crime. Moreover, there is no evidence. Please disregard everything." Zina, on the other hand, knew what journalist Agatha was talking about. She knew Agatha's sister, Nedima. She also knew that she wasn't falsely accused. She was tired of her stealing habits. She knew the source of it and hoped that perhaps what she was about to do would eliminate her stealing habit. She also knew that it could negatively change her and her father's life forever, but she didn't care anymore. "Journalist Agatha is telling the truth," Zina finally said, causing everyone in the hall to gasp in shock. "Zina, you are done with your speech. Leave the stage now," Mr. Okonkwo ordered. "I am tired of everything. I can't stand it again," Zina replied. The business partners told Mr. Okonkwo to remain silent, and he had no other choice but to. He hoped that Zina would not mess up his plan. Zina held up the microphone to her lips and began. 17 years ago, there was a boarding secondary school named Spring Excel Academy, which appeared to be a school for the rich. Only the rich daughters and sons of the wealthy would attend the school. Not until the school decided to give scholarship admissions to 3 students who couldn't afford the school fees every year. And Nnedinma Okeke was one of the students that got the scholarship. She joined the school in JS3. She was an intelligent girl and a bright student with big dreams. She had always wanted to be a journalist and knew that this school would help her achieve her dream. She had also wanted to school in Spring Excel Academy, but because of her parents' financial state, she never mentioned it to them until she heard that they were having a scholarship exam. She had written the exam and emerged second. The first 3 students were chosen that year. Nnedima's sole aim was to be the overall best in her class set, so she worked hard in her studies and eventually became the top of the class, and it remained steady till she reached SS2. At the time, she had already been known for her excellence in her studies. She came top best in all her subjects and never allowed anyone to beat her. The principal and teachers loved her more than her setmates, and she was always used as an example by the principal during school assembly. He would say, SS1 students, can't you emulate Nnedinma? She is a scholarship student, yet she is the best. Does she have 2 heads? Although the principal and teachers loved Nnedinma, it was, however, opposite for her setmates. They hated her. They wondered how a student who didn't pay school fees would come to their school and top the class. One of her many haters was Zina Okonkwo. Zina was once the class best until Nnedinma stepped into the school. But now, she is left to battle with the second, third, and fourth position. Whenever she returned home, her parents would compare her with Nnedinma, asking if she had 2 heads. The worst part of it all was that Nnedinma was made the class prefect by their teachers, and she was made to assist her. This caused a rush of envy and jealousy to overwhelm her. She knew that if Nnedinma wasn't in their school, she would have emerged the first and be the most brilliant and loved student. So she decided to do one thing, which is to make Nnedinma's life in the school a living hell, so that she could quit attending the school. After all, she didn't pay school fees. One day, Zina and her minion friends, Amara and Abike, walked to Nnedinma's desk when she wasn't around and poured super glue on her chair. They did it in such a way that it wasn't noticeable but was enough to embarrass her. After Nnedinma returned, she sat on the chair unknowingly while arranging her books for her literature class. Soon, the literature teacher entered the class, ready to be greeted by the students, when Nnedinma had a tear after standing up swiftly. It happened that the back of her skirt had torn out. A blast of laughter erupted from the mouths of the students in the classroom. Embarrassed, she ran to the females' restroom. As if that wasn't enough, Zina, Amara, and Abike followed her to the restroom. When they got there, they saw Nnedinma crying as she asked, "Who did this to me?" Hearing this, Zina stepped into the toilet with her minion friends and said, "You are lucky it wasn't even worse." She then laughed out loud together with Amara and Abike. Nnedinma began to flare up. Their mocking laughter taunted her. She then moved to Zina and held her by the collar. "You did this, didn't you?" Immediately, Nnedinma received a resounding slap on her face from Zina. It made her fall to the ground. She wasn't expecting it, so she looked at her, shocked. "How dare you put your filthy paw hands on me? Do you know who I am? For your information, I am the daughter of a billionaire, so you dare not touch me. Look at you, reaping where you didn't sow. You have no business staying in this school, so leave. This school is not for poor people like you," she said, placing her hands on her waist. "I am not going anywhere," Nnedinma responded, her voice cracking as she spoke. Wow, this girl has grown wings, so she can now talk back at me. Hold me. In fact, let's teach her a lesson. Zina moved closer to Nnedinma, dragged her up, and threw her to the floor. Amara and Abike joined her as they took turns hitting and kicking Nnedinma, who tried to defend herself. She was kicked at her abdomen, ribs, and face till she obtained bruises. After Zina, Amara, and Abike were done, they left, leaving Nnedinma in pain. This act of bullying from Zina and her friends came in different forms until the semester was over and they returned home for the holiday. Nnedinma was glad that she was finally away from Zina and her friends. When her parents noticed the numerous bruises she had obtained from the beating and asked her what had happened, she lied, saying that she got it during sports in her school. The scholarship admission for Spring Excel Academy opened again, and Nnedinma's only sister, Agatha, wanted to apply. Nnedinma discouraged her from applying, but Agatha was angry that her only sister didn't support her. "How can you not want me to go to that big school? How can you want only yourself to be successful and not me too?" Agatha would ask, and Nnedinma would reply, "I am doing it for your own good. Please understand me. I want the best for you," she said, hoping that Agatha would agree. She knew her sister would get the scholarship because she was just as intelligent as her, but she was scared that she might fall into the hands of bullies in her set. She didn't want what was happening to her to happen to her sister, but Agatha did not budge. She wrote the admission exam and got the scholarship. In fact, unlike Nnedinma, who got the second position, Agatha got the first position amongst 1,000 people that wrote the exam. Because Nnedinma didn't support her, Agatha began to avoid her sister. She thought she didn't want her to succeed in life, and Nnedinma prayed that no bully would see her. When the new semester started, everyone resumed school, including the 3 new scholarship students. Zina, on the other hand, came prepared to torture Nnedinma more this semester. She had planned on doing worse things to her so she could leave the school. She was indeed determined. Nnedinma was not happy with the thought of coming back to school. She wanted to stay back at home much more longer, but she knew that if she tried to, her parents would want to know what made her to make such a decision. She wasn't also happy that her and her sister, Agatha, were not in good terms anymore. Agatha was very excited when her and the 2 other scholarship students were introduced by the principal to the students during assembly. She couldn't wait to explore the school. As time passed, Zina's form of bullying Nnedinma changed. She had noticed that no matter how hard she had hit her or embarrassed her, She was still loved by the principal and teachers, so she wanted to do something that would end their hatred for Nnedinma. One day, during English class, Zina threw a paper squeezed into a ball to Nnedinma. Nnedinma ignored it at first, pretending she wasn't hit by it. But after a while, another one landed on her desk. She knew she couldn't pretend to not see that one, so she took it and opened it. Reading the message inscribed on it, her eyes dilated as her hands shook. Zina had taught her to do the unthinkable, something she totally dreaded. She began to think of the worst things that could happen if she did what Zina had told her to do. The thought of it paralyzed her with fear. What did Zina ask Nnedinma to do through a piece of paper that has consumed Nnedinma with so much fear? Find out in part 2. This is the end of the part 1 of this story. If you want the part 2, do comment I want part 2. Also, please don't forget to support us by subscribing to our channel. Do like this video and turn up your notification button so that you will be notified when part 2 drops. See you in my next story.